All right. Welcome to the show, Anne.
Thank you so much for having me, Alli.
So you run Depict Data Studio out of Florida. Is that right?
That's
Yes.
right.
And can you tell me a little bit about how you got here and what you do day to day?
Yeah. So I've been running Depict Data Studio since 2014. And I got to this point, I think the same way a lot of us do. I basically got really tired of all of the work that was being done, just sitting there in the dusty shelf report, because this is still the case. Sometimes we can talk about this later on, but at least, 10, 15 years ago, most reports I saw were just paragraph after paragraph after paragraph. And these paragraphs would talk about the data and they would say, like, in 2009, it was 20%. And in 2010, it was 25%. And I kept thinking, like, where's the graph? Where, like, show a picture. It had a picture. And I just felt like a lot of really important data was getting lost inside those paragraphs. So I discovered, who did I discover early on? Like Stephen Few, Edward Tufte, Hans Rosling, a lot of the people that are really inspiring to a lot of us doing Dataviz work. And I just explored and explored and explored and started adding graphs. And one thing led to another. And like, here I am with my own company doing a lot of Dataviz training and consulting.
Yeah, I love that your work, you really focus on things that you use every single day. Like I watched your YouTube video on doing a pivot table and how to clean data. Something so funny. You have to correct me if I get it wrong, but something like, we have to remember our manners. I remember you said on one of your data cleaning. And I just remember that every single time I'm like, oh, I need to rename this tab. I have to remember my manners. It just makes me laugh.
Well, I have in those videos about how to like clean and analyze data, I have different steps I go through. So one of the steps, I never knew what to call it. I just call it housekeeping because I think of it as just like keeping things neat and organized and tidy so that, of course, so your coworkers can understand what you're actually doing in the data file, but also for our future selves. And it's great because I actually, I started YouTubing about 10 years ago too. So I can go back and I can open up data files I created for those YouTube videos for training purposes 10 years ago, and everything's named the same way and sheets are, organized the same way, and I can find everything. So it tends to, you got to have your manners, got to use your housekeeping skills.
Yes. And I love that because it's true. And it's the kind of thing day to day you are going to be running into. And you can, if you have these skills, then your work is going to be much nicer for yourself. And like you said, for your future self. And one thing that you said that I wanted to focus in on today's episode is the dusty shelf report, because I think that's another thing we all see a lot of. You're tasked with creating some sort of report and it's not going to get used. And I want to get some tips from you about how we can create reports that people are actually going to read. Like, what are some mistakes that you see most often? And what are some quick little tweaks that we can make to make our reports a little bit better?
Oh, there's so many. I could talk about reports till midnight, but let's talk about the top three things that I think people perceive as being challenges or obstacles, maybe because they think it's going to take too much time or it's going to cost too much money to fix this thing. But I've got some quick wins that we can all follow. And I should mention, I say reports, but these are data viz and design techniques that you can apply to anything. So you can apply these to slideshows, to static or interactive dashboards, to infographics, to like policy briefs. I know you're in the DC area. I used to be in the DC area before moving to Florida. So I work with a lot of government agencies, from my DC background, which some of your podcast listeners they might be government people, they might be contractors, but I also work with a lot of foundations and nonprofits and for-profit. Everybody's got data viz, right? And
it's very integrated into everything else, right? The viz is never just, some poster of one viz on your wall, right? It's usually surrounded by text and other pictures. So it's always integrated into things.
Okay, let's start with the first challenge or barrier that I often see. And this is the groups that only have reports. That's kind of their main communication style. That's the culture in their organization. They think like, oh, going beyond the report it's going to be too costly or time consuming. They just keep everything in the PDF portrait, Calibri size 11, paragraph after paragraph report. And those reports aren't evil, but I just see them as a starting point. Like, okay, great. We've got the report, check. But what else can we add on to that? Can we also have a one pager? Can we have a slide deck? Can we have a dashboard that gets shared at meetings every single month so people get more timely data that they need, not just waiting till the end of the year. Like, oh, great, it's September 30th. Let's write our end of fiscal year report or something. And this is a challenge, especially for anybody with funding. So government agencies, they're always going to have reports. Like, it's not like we're going to do away with reports. I just want to make clear. Like, I think we're always going to need reports of some type. Let's just make sure we have really, really good reports. So this sense that like having a report that's fixed is going to be time consuming or costly. One way to overcome this is the 33-1 approach. Have you heard of this? This is a term that's like common in some fields, but it sounds like jargon in other fields.
No, I haven't heard of it. I heard about it from you actually. So, but I haven't dug into exactly what it means. So I would love if you could explain what that is. 33-1, right?
Yeah. The exact numbers don't matter. It's the spirit of this concept that matters too. So if you want to do like 29-4-2, I don't care. I just want not everything to get lost in the 100-page end of year technical report. So 33-1 goes like this. You take your dusty shelf report. That's, sometimes these are 100 pages. Sometimes they're 300 pages. I'm thinking of like my CDC, my UN, my USAID projects that these are multi-year, multi-million-dollar projects. They've got tons of data. In some cases, like USAID groups, for example, they've like gone to all their sites in Africa, collecting data and collecting surveys and running focus groups. And they have like so much data. So it's got to go somewhere, of course. It can't just like sit inside a spreadsheet either. It needs to go someplace. So you take your 100-page report and you limit the body of the report to just 30 pages of the most important data. The rest of it doesn't get deleted. That's where people worry. They're like, oh no, what am I going to do? Like, where does the other 70 pages go? You don't have to delete it. You can keep it. It goes in the back of the report as an appendix. So you keep the summary portion, just 30 pages or less, with unlimited appendices, visual appendices, which we can talk about too. And then when you're done with your 30-pager, you also make a 3-pager and you also make a 1-pager. It doesn't have to be those exact numbers. It's the idea of like, there's the full technical thing with all the details that the data people might want. The insiders of the project are going to want, 30 pages worth of data. They might flip back to the appendices. They want to see the tables. They want to see more nuances. There's the mid-length thing, about 3 pages. And then there's the really short and sweet 1-pager or infographic. And people think this is going to take all day to do. It's not. I mean, I like everyday software. I like Excel. I like PowerPoint. I like Word. You just make your 30-pager and you do a save as, and you just delete a bunch of stuff. And then you've got your 3-pager, and then you do a save as and you delete a bunch of stuff and you've got your 1-pager. So a lot of groups, they'll spend like 2, 3, 4 weeks with multiple staff members' time making this 100-page report. And it's like, if you put in one more day of time, you can knock out the 3-pager and the 1-pager too. So it's, I don't know, proportionally, it's not a lot of budget. It's not a lot of time with so much payoff. I mean, so many people are interested in 1 page worth of data about a project, but they don't have the time to look at 100 pages worth of data for a project. Mm-hmm. So I find the 1-pagers and 3-pagers are like the best use of time because they go so far and reach so many more people.
I understand what use the 1-pager would have, but what have you seen the 3-pager used for mostly? Is this kind of the CEO who wants, more details than the 1-pager, but not to read the 100-pager? Is that the kind of?
Yep. It's just the in-between. It's the groups that are like, well, I want something more than like the overview. but I don't really need all the details. Like I just need something right in the middle. It's the Goldilocks approach, of course, like not too big, not too small, not too detailed, but not too sparse, something in the mid-range. And in practice, I see a lot of these that are maybe like 5 or 10 pages, because if you're starting with 100 pages, cutting it down to just 3, that does take some time. I mean, a lot of people have to weigh in on that. You have to get approval from a supervisor or from a work group on like, are these the right data points to include if we can only have 3 pages? So that kind of filtering process does take a lot of time. There are sometimes just a lot of cooks in the kitchen making decisions. So if people who are listening, if you don't make it to 3 pages, if you go from 100 to 10, like high five, good work. I'm going to celebrate that as a massive win.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any advice for how to cut that information? Like what kind of things are you looking for when you're looking to cut information, or what's the ideal thing to keep?
I feel like on one of your podcasts, did you mention Marie Kondo at one point in one of your podcasts?
Maybe.
You know of her, don't you?
I do. Yes, I do know of her.
Okay. So I was reading her books years ago about, what does she call it? Life-changing magic of tidying up and everything. And she has this very specific formula, or how-to process for how you're supposed to declutter your home. And I thought it sounded crazy, but I've applied it to my home and I've applied it to my Dataviz process. And it goes like this. She says, if you want to declutter your closet, for example, and get rid of some of your old clothes that don't fit or the style's old, whatever, you gather all your clothes from all over your house and you lay them on a massive pile on top of your bed, for example. And this pile in American homes is like 10 feet tall. You've got all your coats and your ski boots you wore one time and your hiking boots that don't fit you anymore. Like you've got all your clothes and shoes and everything, all your apparel. And you don't think about what are you going to discard. That's very stressful. Like getting rid of things like freaks us all out. Like, what if I need those ski boots again? I don't know. I've only been skiing once, but I might go again in 5 years. Who knows? That's really stressful. So she says, focus on what you're going to keep. And she is you've probably heard of this. It's like, you're supposed to lift up each item one at a time. Does this spark joy? Does it like send a shiver down your spine? Do you love this t-shirt, for example? I'm not saying do that with our reports, but what I am saying, it's not like, oh, let me pick up this craft. Does it spark joy? But you go through the report with 1 or 2 other people, not too big of a team, 1 or 2 other people, and think about, is this paragraph or graph or chapter, is it so useful? Does it deserve to stay? What are we keeping? And anything that doesn't get mentioned, you're just tricking. We're adults. We know we're tricking ourselves, but that just doesn't stay. It gets discarded or deleted out of the 3-pager or 1-pager. So focus on what you're going to keep. In practice, I usually just do this in Word, where maybe 1 or 2 other people from a project and me, we just open up the Word document and we just literally highlight in yellow the parts that we think are so important that they have to stay in the summary document. And then we just we open them both side by side on our monitors and we're like, oh, you thought that chapter 2 was really important. Me too. And like, look, we both highlighted the same graph here and the same paragraph. Well, that's a keeper. Oh, nothing in chapter 4, like neither of us highlighted that. I guess it's not staying in the 3-pager. So you just focus on like, what are the really juicy parts? What's going to be really useful? Kind of compare with somebody else side by side. And it's usually that simple. Usually people do have consensus in a project and people find that the same parts of the report really stand out and are worth keeping.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. 33-1. All right. That's very catchy and it makes a lot of sense too. What about another mistake or a challenge that you see often with reports?
So another one I see is that we all have so much data. Every company I've worked with, every agency, every organization, we have so much data, more than ever, and we need to pack a lot of information into a report. So how do you have a report that's information dense, but it doesn't feel overwhelming? That's a really delicate balance where people feel like it's like an either or you can only pick one or something like that. I would say that's false. You can have a lot of really rich information. It doesn't have to feel overwhelming. It can actually feel really doable and really skimmable. And the way to do that is color coding by chapter. So of course you're going to have colors in your report. I mean, sure, it might get printed in grayscale, but like the on-screen or computer version is of course going to have colors. I recommend brand colors, accessible colors. That's a topic for another day, but like, of course it's going to have colors, but rather than just like kind of randomly assigning colors here and there, like, oh, we've got some red and we've got some blue and here's some green and here's some yellow, rather than using color for decoration, using color to help guide people through chunks of the report and make the report more skimmable. So this is the part in the podcast where I'm going to try my best to describe a public health report that I worked on. And I'm going to send you some links, Alli, so you can put them in the show notes. People can see what this actually looks like. But the example I have in mind, it's one of my favorite examples of color coding by chapter. It was a county health agency that I worked with. And their starting point was the Dusty Shelf report. It was 100 pages, public health data. There was like, a page on pregnancy rates, a page on ozone depletion, a page on cancer, several pages on cancer, a lot of, resident cancer data, traffic accidents, all the county public health info that people might want. And, it's 100 pages. Who can read all 100 pages when it's graph after graph after graph? Nobody, right? So what we wanted to do was make it really easy for people to find the chapter that they needed. So people working at the transportation agency, they need to find the like traffic accident chapter. The people working in the environmental agency, they need to find the environmental data chapter. Like we knew there were certain chapters relevant to different residents in the county. So sounds really simple. We just took their brand colors. They had 4 brand colors and every chapter was a different brand color. So chapter 1 was like this color. Chapter 2 was another color. Chapter 3 was another color. So everything in that chapter had that brand color everywhere. Like heading 1s, heading 2s, heading 3s were all the brand color, not just like black text, but the headings were colored in that chapter's color. All the graphs had that brand color. So we had a lot of the graphs with the dark light contrast, to make like one bar out of the bar chart would stand out, or one point on the map would stand out. Everything else is grayed out. Like that point that's in focus and highlighted would be in that brand color. Bullet points, instead of bullet points being just little black dots, we did colored in that brand color. So one of their brand colors was this really beautiful, like dark red burgundy. So chapter 1 was like all burgundy, heading 1s, heading 2s, the maps, the graphs, the diagrams, the bullet points, the call out boxes, the sidebars, the little footnote with the name of the report and the year, like that was all burgundy. And then you're scrolling through the report and you're like, okay, this is all the chapter on such and such topic. And then all of a sudden the color changes and your brain's like, oh, the topic area must have changed as well. And you switch to their other brand color was navy. So you see like this whole navy chapter. So chapter 2 is like navy heading 1s, navy heading 2s, navy graphs, navy maps, like everything navy. And then you're scrolling, and then the color changes and your brain's like, the content must have changed as well. So it's this nice behind the scenes cue for our readers, letting them know color changes signal a content change. I do this on reports, but you can also do this on slideshows. You could do it on dashboards, so rather than just colors like smattered everywhere, it's very monotone within the topic, like this topic and this color, this topic and another color, this topic and another color.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Cause I can see how that would help you keep your colors under control just by default. So you don't end up, having accidentally coloring 16 categories, 16 different colors in your bar chart. You think, well, I have to just use this one color and I have to just highlight what stands out or what's the important part. So it keeps that under control. But then also, it seems like it would be more memorable that way too, because for a lot of those reports like that, where it's really dense, I know for me, it's like, oh, well, I remember I had passed this really great scatter plot and I can't remember where it was, but in your mind, you're going to remember that it was a red scatter plot. And you're like, oh, it's in chapter 2. That's the red chapter. Yeah, that's genius.
I thought I learned this. Who did I learn this topic from? I thought I learned it from Gar Reynolds. I have his presentation Zen books on the shelf behind me because his books, when I was reading them a few years ago, they were so skimmable. Like he took all this presentation information, but I didn't feel overwhelmed learning it. He broke it up into very manageable chapters. So it's just like you skim through and you're like, oh, you're learning something really helpful on each page. There was plenty of white space. Like everything was, I thought, color coded by chapter. But I actually talked to him about this maybe a year ago. And I was like, I love how you color coded everything by chapter. And he was like, false. I didn't make that up. So I don't know where I learned it from, but if anybody knows, this is a graphic design technique that I think professional graphic designers use a lot when they're designing like annual reports or, nice looking, really professional looking reports. But it's something that like, unless you're a professional graphic designer, you weren't taught this in school. I was taught research methods and statistics in school. I never learned like how to use color in reports in school. I've had to kind of learn that as I go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, I was a math major, so it was like any kind of design stuff, I have no idea about. So learning these little tricks from the more visual fields is just gold for us to be able to integrate into our own work.
Yep.
So that's great. I love that one. I'm definitely using that one. All right. How about, do you have time to give us a third challenge that you see often?
Okay. This third one, it relates to what you just said about being a math major or me having my statistics and research methods background. It's making sure our report is not all graphs. So the data people, we love our graphs. We're comfortable with our graphs. We have our bar charts and our line charts and our diagrams. And we know all about graphs, or we're learning more about Dataviz and graph types. But we forget there's so many other types of visuals we could use. And then I also partner with graphic design companies a lot on projects, and they have a different specialty. They're great at their photographs. They're like, let's make the data come to life. We'll make it more human. We'll add photos of real people affected by this project or policy. And it's like, we're both right, but there's also more out there. So the challenge is like making sure your report's not just all one thing, not just paragraphs, not just graphs, not just photographs, making sure there are a variety of visuals. And I made a list for you. I'll read them off real quickly. I think these are going to sound really obvious when you hear them. Again, it's just like, we weren't trained to do it. I wasn't. I can't imagine in your math classes that they were like, make sure you use timelines. Like that's not something we were taught. So, okay, here's the list of 15. Number 1, graphs. Check. If you're listening to this podcast, I know you've got graphs. Number 2, photographs. Don't forget a photo. If you're writing a report or making a slideshow about a certain policy or a program or an initiative, add a photo. Bonus points if it's not just a cheesy stock photo of like 2 people in business suits holding hands. I mean, there's lots of good stock photography sites, so that shouldn't be a problem finding a high quality photo. Number 3, icons. There's research showing that icons make our graphs more memorable. So I even use sometimes I even use like checks or X's, like check, we met the goal, or X, we didn't meet the goal. Simple things like that. There's a lot of easy icon wins. Number 4, lists. This is really obvious, but if you don't have any bullet point lists, if you just have paragraph after paragraph, I bet you can break that paragraph into a shorter skimmable list someplace. That's a quick win too. People love numbered lists too. If you have a report that's like, here are the 5 key takeaway messages, number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, rather than just a big run-on paragraph. Number 5, maps. This is going to be obvious to some people listening and not so obvious to others. I work on a lot of international development projects. So like USAID, UN, State Department types of projects, and they have so many maps. Those people are great at maps. It's like a map of everything, like page 1 map, page 2 map, page 3 map. So for those people, like, good, you've got your maps, you've got enough. Maybe you need other types of visuals, but then other groups I work with, not a single map. And there are opportunities for maps, something little like, you're running a GED program at a few different sites around DC. Just have a little map with like little pin drops showing the locations where your program's operating. Quick wins like that. Yeah,
people love maps. They love to be able to orient themselves into where this is happening.
Mhm. Sometimes I even just put an outline of the country or the state where something's taking place. Let's say it's a one pager that's, I'm thinking of like mosquito nets being distributed in Uganda. That was one I worked on recently. And we just added an outline of Uganda to the top next to the title, just so that people looking at these, they know, like, am I looking at the report for Zambia or Uganda or, wherever, and they can just find on their desk or in their inbox, like, oh, that's the Uganda one because it's got the outline of Uganda. So easy maps. Number 6, diagrams. Easy stuff like Venn diagrams, org charts. I just go to Smart Art for inspiration, and then I edit them and customize them from there. A lot of people are familiar with Nancy Duarte's Diagrammer. That one's an easy win. That's like Smart Art on steroids. There's just a lot of easy diagrams to use, like spoke diagrams, step-by-step diagrams, cycles. There are absolutely parts of every project where it's like, instead of explaining what's going on in words, you just need a diagram to explain the concept.
No, it's very interesting how if you just have a word with a circle on it with an arrow to another circle, like that can just create that click for someone's brain rather than reading it.
Yeah, I had a project recently where we were just describing the staffing structure of this project. Like, they got X millions of dollars. Here's how they staffed the program. They made this board and this committee. We just made an org chart in Smart Art just to describe that. And I just feel like, visuals are going to be more memorable than the words alone. So easy win. I forget what number we are on. 7? I don't know. I think 7. Timelines. Timelines can also be simple. I would say if you have 2 points in time, you can make a timeline. Something easy like 2015, project started. 2021, project ended. Like that alone, a simple arrow in Word or PowerPoint or Excel with some text boxes on it, like we're good, call it a day. Of course, you can make a lot more complex timelines if you have multiple points in time and multiple things happening in your workplace. But even, 2 or 3 point timelines, I would say like virtual high five, good job, you've got a timeline. I mean, if the goal here is let's not have just the narrative document or just the PowerPoint slide that's like bullet point after bullet point after bullet point, if text only is kind of the baseline that a lot of our workplaces still have, any visual, even simple visuals, I think are going to be better than none at all. All right, number 8, I think we're on 8, logos. So a lot of groups have logos on reports and slideshows, maybe on the opening page or the opening slide of like, the group that put out the report, but you can also put them within the report for things like different collaborations or committees or coalitions. So I'm thinking of like projects I've worked in the DC area. A lot of times it's like this nonprofit is working with this city government, is working with this federal agency, and then they're working with this nearby university. And like, there are all these partners involved in doing big projects. So just recognize their work, add their logo. It's a professional courtesy, to acknowledge that maybe your group writing the report wasn't the only one doing the work, but it also adds a visual rather than just listing out organization names in a paragraph. Just add their logo.
It seems like it's actually pretty surprising how many logos you recognize, but you don't recognize it when you see the words too. So it can be more memorable and more recognizable for the logo.
Like just before we started recording, where I was like, oh, I recognize that one logo you mentioned. It has the slanty italics text.
Yes.
Yeah. I was working with somebody in my online courses. She works at the Smithsonian Institution, and like, you're from DC, Smithsonian, but I was thinking you have the star logo or the sun. It's like the sun with like little, I don't know, it's turquoise and yellow. There's so many logos that people do recognize more than the name potentially. All right. Number 8, 9, screenshots. So anytime you're referencing some other resource, like if your report or slideshow says, for more information, visit this website, sure, you can list the URL, but just show a screenshot of the homepage of the website. Or if you're referencing here are 3 Dataviz books you could check out. Just show a screenshot of the cover.
Mm.
Their book covers are really easy to find online anyway. Or, for more info, go use this guide or document. Just take a screenshot of the cover of that guide or document and include that, not just the URL, not just the name of the document.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I never really thought about that, but it is true. If someone's mentioning, oh, just go to this website and click the word contact or something, actually having a screenshot and saying, oh, contact is going to be in the upper right-hand corner. It just makes it so much easier for me.
Yeah, because otherwise we get the text only reports and the text only slideshows, and nobody wants to read that or sit through that. So
yeah, it's a lot to parse.
The next one, number 10, is text overlaid on images. This is pretty specific, but I've worked on a few projects where it's just made sense to have like pictures of notebooks or checklists or paper. I worked with a doctor recently who was getting ready to go present at a medical conference. He was an anesthesiologist and he was presenting on this checklist for anesthesiologists. And he was like, we have this checklist so that us doctors don't make mistakes. Nobody wants to make a mistake in a healthcare setting, of course. Mm-hmm. So now that we have this checklist, we're less likely to make mistakes. And he was presenting all the research studies behind that. So we just found a stock photograph of a clipboard with some, white paper on it. And we put the name of this checklist on top of it. So just not that he was telling me they don't even do these checklists on paper anymore. It's not like the anesthesiologist is like walking around, maybe sometimes with paper, but he said it's usually on an iPad or on the computer that's in the hospital room anyway. But that image of like a checklist is on a clipboard, maybe that seemed to resonate enough and make it real enough. So find a stock photo, you can put a text box on top of it. Mm-hmm. The next one, 11, this is cheating a little bit. Columns. So let's say you have 3 bullet points going down, top to bottom on your screen or page. You literally change them to go across. So rather than, top, middle, bottom, go left, middle, right. This is really hard to describe on a podcast. But you just turn your rows into columns and that just breaks up the flow and kind of the look and feel enough that I would count it. And I'd say like, great. We did something visual.
Oh yeah, I love that.
The next one is shapes. So if you're using everyday software like PowerPoint, Word, or Excel, you just go to insert shapes. Everybody knows about like text boxes, but the speech bubble, the thought bubble, those are nice ones. When I used to, pre-COVID, do a lot of in-person training, I would give people at tables different kind of assignments or discussion questions. So anytime they'd have an activity coming up, I would just have a slide that showed the speech bubble. And then they knew that was their question that they were supposed to talk about with their group. So it was just a nice visual cue to be like, oh, it must be time to talk at our tables. And of course I would say like, now talk at your tables about XYZ, but they had that symbol over and over of the speech bubble with their question typed out in the center of it.
Oh yeah. It seems like you could use that too for a recurring section in your report. Like we always have a summary at the end or something, and then you show, a shape of whatever.
Yeah, that's a great one. I feel like I've seen in books too, of like maybe a picture of like a mouse where it's like, go online to the online resource guide, or maybe it's a little picture of a laptop or something. Oh, that's more of icons, but some of these are overlapping, as you can see. What's the next one? Oh, handwriting. Sometimes reports get so formal that it's, I think, almost is a downside. Like it almost detracts from the report where it's all just nice fancy fonts over and over. And sometimes adding something in more of like a handwriting font, or I have a touch screen, so I can like literally like write on my screen. I'll do things in trainings where at the beginning of a new topic, I'll be like, we're going to talk about color vision deficiencies. And then the next slide I'll have in handwriting where I've like actually touched my screen, written in really messy handwriting. I'll say like, write this down, avoid red, green color combos. And then people know like that's their time to pick up their notebook, go write it down in handwriting. So that's just a visual cue too, to be like, oh, I got to write down some notes, got to write some notes.
Mm.
Sometimes I'll do things too, like if I'm giving people Dataviz advice of what to do or not to do, the not to do, like, the 3D pie chart with 100 exploding slices, I'll just put a big red X on top of it where I've just drawn on my screen a big red X. So it's very clear. The red X is like, don't do this.
Yeah, I've seen you do that a lot on your when you're showing comparing two different things, and it's just like you can tell it looks like somebody just took a red marker and just X out it, and it is very eye-catching because you're not used to seeing that. It's almost like you were sitting next to someone and they were, marking things for you and teaching you.
I think you could add a red X with shapes, right? You could go to insert shapes and just add two nice little lines, or I think there actually is a shape of an X. You could add an icon of an X. You could add a polished looking red X really easily, but then that might just blend in with everything else. There's some value of being like a little bit unpolished sometimes of things that look like a little bit crooked or a little bit handwritten.
Yeah, it looks like it could
I
be
was talking
part
with
of
a
the
friend
picture.
recently who does, oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, yeah, it looks like it could be part of the picture if it's like one of the nice clean X's, but here it's like, it's obvious I am annotating this and telling you not to do it.
Yeah. I was just starting to say, I was talking with a friend recently who does visual note taking. So she's a professional illustrator. She goes to conferences and the keynote speaker sometimes maybe talking and somebody's kind of scribing what they're saying, but with pictures. She does that for a living. And she had a stat that was something like on social media, only, I forget the exact numbers, but it's something like only 1% of images are handwritten or hand drawn. And that can help stop the scroll because we see so many perfect pictures and photographs. Well, in the Dataviz world, we see so many like perfect graphs. And sometimes maybe being a little bit just, it looks hand drawn. I mean, there's a lot of people in Dataviz, especially doing drawing. And that's like a big thing for good reason. So it's just like, handwriting can really help.
Oh, I love that.
And the last two are cartoons and GIFs, because sometimes the most formal reports could do with a little bit of illustration, like a cartoon or a GIF to like really get the point across quickly. And my favorite person in this space is my friend Chris Lessy. He blogs at freshspectrum.com. I think he's still .com. Maybe he changed. Fresh Spectrum. If you Google that, you'll find Chris's site. And he has so many data cartoons, statistics cartoons, research methods cartoons. So it's things like explaining a p-value in a cartoon, or like all those jargony terms that we all learned in math class in college. He's explained those visually. I think they're outstanding and really, really helpful to get the point across.
Yeah, I can see how that can be eye-catching as well, because I found that people, they're not used to those kinds of things being in their niche. Like when I've been doing some illustrations that are for Dataviz, it's like, well, an illustrator isn't usually interested in doing Dataviz, creating data visualization illustrations. So when I do that, it's eye-catching because people aren't used to seeing it, and people are excited to see like, oh, that's something that's illustrated, that's nice looking, that's something that's, part of me. So it is very eye-catching.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. That's the 15 types of visuals.
Oh, I love it. I'm definitely going to add this in the show notes, because this is just a nice way to, you get a very dusty report, or maybe you're making one, you're like, wow, I just really need to jazz it up a little bit to add some visuals. And then you draw a blank, and just being able to go through this list will give you just as you were reading this, I was getting so many ideas. So I'll definitely put these in the show notes.
Great.
One thing that I wanted you to talk briefly on is the courses that you have, because I have had a lot of people who come from graphic design come to me and say, oh, I'm good with the design, but now I don't really know how to get, bulk up my data, the data side. And I've referred a lot of people to your courses, because I'm just like, if you need to know how to, you need to know your manners around a spreadsheet, you need to go to Anne, because she is going to teach you like literally everything that you need to know. So could you just briefly tell us a little bit about the courses that you have and kind of what people can get from them?
Yeah. So I have 6 different course topics because some people are like, why don't you just have one? Well, because there's so many cool things to learn about and teach people, and they're all on a different topic. So one course I have is all about data analysis and spreadsheets and formulas. So that's usually for the data people. It's like if we learned SPSS or SAS or whatever programs they're teaching in research methods and stats classes nowadays, but it's like your workplace only has Excel. How do you do all those things on Excel? Mm-hmm. So I consider that a prerequisite course, because a lot of times people get into Dataviz and I'm like, go do this cool thing in your Dataviz. And they're like, oh, I can't, it's going to take too long. Just cleaning the data alone is going to take a week. I'm like, really? It doesn't have to take that long. So that's a big time saving course about spreadsheets. I have a Dataviz best practices course. I have a how to do Dataviz in Excel course, which is like assuming you already know why pie charts with 100 slices aren't going to work. It's more like, okay, let's just like hit the ground running and let's make all those cool graphs, not just the easy stuff like bar charts, but the more advanced things that really take some behind the scenes maneuvers to figure out how to do. Let's see, spreadsheets, Dataviz best practices, Dataviz and Excel. And then I have 3 deep dive courses. So I have one just on reports. So kind of what we covered today is a good starting point. It's like that with more. One just on presentations and one just on dashboards. The graphic designers would probably want to go in the Dataviz best practices course. We actually have a lot of graphic designers in that course because they know about the design side. Like, of course they do. That's their specialty, but figuring out what chart type to use, how to use color, accessibility, how to take really technical data and translate it for non-technical audiences. That's usually something that they've never been taught or exposed to before.
Yeah. And just getting ideas on what chart types work for this kind of situation, just getting some real hands-on knowledge.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks so much, Anne. Thanks for all this amazing information. I'm so excited to share this episode. Where can people go to learn more about you? Go to see your courses, your blog, your YouTube channel. Where should people go?
Yeah, probably the easiest thing is just Google me. Just Google Anne K. Emery, and you'll find me. That's why I use my middle initial, because there's like 20 million Anne Emerys in the world. So Anne K. Emery. I'm the only one doing Dataviz. And then my blog is at depictdatastudio.com. But again, if you just Google Anne K. Emery, I'm very easy to find online on all the channels.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Anne.
Thank you, Alli.